Welcome, viewers. Today we reveal the shocking fall of a truly extravagant modern empire. In 1971, a massive desert party crowned a king who thought he was invincible. While elites drank champagne from crystal glasses, a fierce anger was slowly boiling in the dark slums. His massive army and brutal secret police could not stop a quiet revolution on cheap tapes. How did a few smuggled cassette tapes manage to destroy a 2,000-year-old royal dynasty? We begin in the Persian desert, under a dark night sky, lit by countless brilliant crystal lights. It is 1971. The start of the most expensive party in all of modern history. The Shah of Iran wanted to celebrate 2.5 millennia of the great Persian Empire. He built a grand oasis of luxury beside the ancient, weathered ruins of Persepolis. World leaders from over 60 nations gathered here to witness this breathtaking display of wealth. Presidents, kings, and queens arrived in private jets to sleep in lavish, air-conditioned silk tents. They feasted on roasted peacock and tons of black caviar, all flown in directly from Paris. Fine wine flowed freely into crystal goblets, surrounded by thousands of heavily armed royal guards. At the center of it all stood Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the undisputed King of Kings. Wearing a crown heavy with precious jewels, he looked upon his guests with absolute arrogance. He truly believed his power was absolute, a divine right passed down from Cyrus the Great himself. The desert winds whispered tales of ancient glory, feeding the Shah's incredibly massive ego. He wanted the Western world to see Iran not just as a wealthy nation, but as an equal. Each flashing camera and polite applause only blinded him to the bitter reality. He thought this lavish spectacle would unite his people and secure his legacy for all time. Instead, it planted the very first seeds of deep resentment among the starving working class. The glittering fireworks above the ruins were nothing but a beautiful, highly expensive mirage. As the party finally ended, the Shah returned to his palace, convinced his throne was totally safe. He did not realize that the immense cost of this single event had outraged religious leaders. They saw the flowing champagne and Western excess as a direct insult to their sacred faith. But the King of Kings simply ignored their warnings, choosing to focus on his grand military dreams. He believed that with enough money and weapons, no internal rebellion could ever touch him. The grand celebration was over, but the tragic countdown to his ultimate ruin had just begun. The early 70s brought a massive global oil crisis, sending the price of crude oil soaring. Iran's wealth exploded overnight, pouring billions of dollars into the royal treasury. The Shah used this endless river of cash to fund his ultimate obsession: military dominance. He confidently declared that Iran would soon become the 5th most powerful military on Earth. American and European contractors flooded Tehran to sell their deadly weapons. The Shah purchased thousands of the most advanced fighter jets and heavy tanks available today. He spent hours standing in high-tech command rooms, staring at his tactical maps with a proud smile. His generals assured him that this modernized army could easily crush any domestic threat. Western leaders praised his vision, viewing Iran as an unbreakable fortress in the Middle East. They gladly traded advanced military weapons for a steady, endless flow of cheap Persian oil. But this rapid modernization was entirely built on a dangerously fragile foundation. To protect his growing power, the Shah heavily expanded his brutal secret police, the SAVAK. These ruthless agents operated in the shadows, wearing dark suits and hiding behind aviators. They spread a thick blanket of fear across the nation, crushing any sign of political dissent. Thousands of students and activists were suddenly arrested, facing unspeakable, ruinous pain. The SAVAK agents believed their extreme methods were necessary to maintain perfect social order. The King of Kings sat safely behind high palace walls, entirely shielded from the screams of his people. He read carefully filtered intelligence reports that only told him exactly what he wished to hear. He truly believed that the entire nation loved him and fully supported his grand Western reforms. His advisors assured him that the isolated protests were just the work of a few radical fools. So he continued to buy more American fighter jets, while his own country slowly bled from within. Have you ever wondered how a leader, surrounded by brilliant spies, could be so incredibly blind? The answer lies in the fatal arrogance of absolute power, detached from bitter reality. The Shah's impressive, grand military machine looked absolutely invincible on paper. But weapons of steel are completely useless against a united, spiritually enraged crowd. The SAVAK focused entirely on catching communist spies, totally ignoring religious clerics. They wrongly assumed that men in traditional robes posed no real threat to a modernized, rich state. They monitored telephone lines and foreign mail, but failed to secure the deeply traditional mosques. The Shah was preparing to fight a high-tech, modern war, while a holy revolution brewed quietly. His shining new tanks and perfectly trained soldiers paraded through the wide streets of the capital city. The Western media captured these glorious parades, calling Iran a shining beacon of progress. Yet, beneath the heavy tracks of those expensive tanks, the ancient soul of the nation was fracturing. The Shah pushed for rapid westernization, forcing citizens to abandon their ancient customs. He banned certain religious garments and aggressively changed the ancient Islamic calendar system. To the conservative working class, these sudden changes felt like a violent strike on their identity. The king was desperately trying to buy a modern future, but he was fast losing the present. The massive military budget drained resources that should have been used to build schools and hospitals. The idea of invincibility was bright, but the explosive fuse was already lit. Let us leave the bright, sterile military command rooms and step into the shadows of the capital. Welcome to the Grand Bazaar of Tehran, the true beating heart of the Iranian economy. Beneath the dusty arches, the harsh reality of the economic miracle is revealed. The sudden influx of oil money had triggered a massive wave of uncontrollable hyperinflation. While the elites drove imported sports cars, ordinary families struggled to afford their daily bread. Traditional merchants, known as Bazaris, watched their hard-earned profits vanish into thin air overnight. The gap between the incredibly rich and the desperately poor had become brutally extreme. Tired laborers with calloused hands and exhausted faces gathered in dark, hidden alleyways. They angrily whispered about royal corruption and the massive waste of national wealth. They remembered the staggering cost of the Persepolis party while they starved in their modest homes. The Shah's abusive government blamed these small merchants for the rising prices, launching unfair crackdowns. SAVAK agents often raided the market stalls, arresting innocent men and seizing their property. This brutal oppression slowly pushed the conservative Bazaris toward the radical clerics. The merchants had the money, and the clerics had the spiritual influence needed to spark a fire. Together, they formed a powerful, silent alliance, directly beneath the arrogant king's nose. The SAVAK agents walking through the market failed to see the deep hatred burning in people's eyes. They only saw poor, uneducated workers, dismissing them as a harmless, pathetic crowd. But history has clearly shown that the greatest revolutions always begin in the hungry stomachs. Records note that by late 1977, the economic tension was at a peak. Urban slums expanded rapidly around the city edges, filled with angry, displaced rural farmers. These desperate people sought comfort in their local mosques, where angry sermons echoed loudly. Religious leaders spoke of justice, equality, and the urgent need to overthrow the corrupt Shah. They skillfully painted the King of Kings as a wicked puppet, controlled entirely by foreign masters. The message spread like wildfire through the tight-knit communities, entirely bypassing the secret police. State-controlled television stations only broadcasted endless footage of royal achievements. But the true news of the nation was being fiercely debated in the smoky, crowded market tea houses. The physical world of the bazaar stood in stark contrast to the shiny palaces of the elites. It was a world of rough, woven fabrics, muddy boots, and deeply wrinkled, profoundly exhausted faces. Every single day, the heavy burden of survival chipped away their fear of the SAVAK agents. When a man cannot feed his own children, the threat of a dark prison cell suddenly loses its terror. A dangerous tipping point was approaching, driven by economic desperation and deep faith. The Shah's billion-dollar fighter jets were completely useless against this invisible enemy. You cannot destroy a mighty idea that has taken root inside the hearts of hungry, angry men. The grand illusion of royal supremacy was about to shatter into a million pieces. In 1978, a new kind of weapon secretly entered the heavily guarded borders. It was not a foreign missile, nor a bomb, but a simple, cheap, and fragile black audio cassette. From a small village in France, an exiled cleric recorded his furious, rebellious speeches. Ayatollah Khomeini spoke directly to the desperate, hungry masses in their native language. These magnetic tapes were quickly smuggled in, copied thousands of times, and passed around quietly. The Royal Intelligence Agency, with all its modern technology, completely missed the threat. They searched for hidden guns, but never thought to listen to the quiet whispers echoing in the mosques. His powerful voice cut through the heavy fear, telling the working class to rise up against the tyrant Shah. Soon, the narrow streets exploded with the largest, most violent protests the city had ever seen. Millions of angry citizens marched bravely together, carrying the banned cassettes like sacred weapons. They fiercely tore down the royal posters, their faces burning brightly with revolutionary fire. The king's modern riot police formed thick defensive lines, hiding behind large plastic shields in pure panic. Bullets flew through the thick smoke, striking down unarmed men. But the angry crowd just kept pushing forward. The heavy military tanks rolled into the squares, facing a massive sea of fearless citizens. When soldiers were ordered to shoot their own brothers, many simply dropped their heavy guns and joined the march. The absolute monarchy, backed by Western powers and billion-dollar weapons, was crumbling very fast. By 1979, the chaotic riots escalated far beyond any hope of control. The Shah realized that all his vast riches and shiny medals could no longer protect his fragile throne. In the freezing cold of January, the once mighty King of Kings walked slowly to his waiting airplane. He wore a dark overcoat, his face pale and wrinkled, looking utterly defeated and exhausted. Tears quietly filled his tired eyes as he left his homeland, knowing he would never see it again. His departure marked the stunning victory of the common people over the elite ruling class. The bright tents of Persepolis were completely abandoned to the heavy, blowing desert winds. The crystal chandeliers shattered, lying uselessly in the cold dirt as a massive storm moved in fast. This fallen empire serves as a strong reminder that military strength cannot buy a nation's love. It proves that a leader, blinded by immense wealth and pride, will surely be destroyed by cold reality. The ancient, amazing legacy was wiped away by poor men armed only with spoken words. History teaches us that the highest thrones always cast the longest shadows over the common folk. When voices of dissent are silenced, they do not simply vanish. They only grow stronger underground. The lavish desert party became the ultimate symbol of a deeply rotten, blind government. Brutal secret police cannot ever stop the massive wave of a truly unified national spirit. The Shah's fall serves as a dark warning to any leader placing absolute power above mankind. We must always remember that true power does not reside in cold steel weapons or shiny golden crowns. It resides in the hands and hearts of the ordinary people who work tirelessly to build the nation. The echoes of that spectacular desert party still serve as a ghostly lesson for the whole world. An empire built on vanity and cruelty will surely collapse under its own heavy weight. No amount of foreign funding can ever save a king who has completely lost his own people's deep trust. Looking back at the dramatic footage of 1979, we see the raw face of history. The brave citizens stood completely unarmed against one of the strongest armies on the planet today. Their stunning victory proved that human courage is much stronger than any modern deadly weapon. The black cassette tape remains a powerful symbol of resistance against unchecked, brutal tyranny. It reminds us that truth will always find a quiet way to speak, even in the darkest, deepest shadows. The ruins of Persepolis have silently witnessed the rise and tragic fall of many great rulers. But none were as spectacular and sudden as the rapid collapse of the proud Pahlavi dynasty. As the cold winds sweep across the desert sands, the ghosts of that lavish party fade away forever. Today, the magnificent palaces stand empty, while the bustling market streets continue to thrive. This massive historical shift still shapes the complex politics of the modern Middle East today. The story of the Shah's tragic downfall remains a vital lesson for all future generations. It stands as a timeless testament to the unbreakable, fiery spirit of the working class. No leader, however powerful, can ever afford to ignore the deep suffering of the masses. The memory of those dark, chaotic days will forever echo through all of global history. It is a dark story of arrogance, immense wealth, and the ultimate triumph of the common man. The Shah's tragic fall leaves us with a haunting question about the true cost of absolute, unchecked power. Was he a visionary, ruined by extremists? Or a tyrant who caused his own downfall? Share your thoughts. Please like this video, share it, and subscribe for more amazing history content today.